All right, what's good, family? It's your man, Deshaun Wolf Williams here with another episode of the Black Vest Money Podcast. Listen, y'all, we got another special guest. I'm extremely excited and honored to be speaking to this gentleman. I'll just go ahead and just give you a brief description. He's a retired Army sergeant. He is a public speaker who has basically become the go-to consultant, for a lot of professionals, for government agencies as well. He's the author of the book Succeeding While Black, and also the author of the book Leading While Black. Let's welcome the founder of Drayton Communications, Mr. Matthew Drayton. How are you, good sir?
Hey, Deshaun, how you doing today, man? Nice to be with you, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. I couldn't complain today if I wanted to. So, life is good, man.
It wouldn't help you either.
That's a fact. Nobody's listening. You know what I mean? Nobody's listening.
That's right.
So listen, Matt, for the people who, may not be familiar with you, just within my audience and whatnot, can you explain to people who you are and how you got started?
Yeah. So my name's Matt Drayton. I'm a retired Army Sergeant Major. I spent 26 years in the U.S. Army. I spent another 14 years as a Department of Defense civilian. So all in all, I have about 40 years of government service. Wow. In addition to that, I went after I retired from the military, I started up Drayton Communications, LLC, primarily as a speaking business. I did public speaking. I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. So I do public speaking events and I masters of ceremonies. And then, around a year after I founded my company, I started working with at-risk youth here in North Carolina for a mentoring group. We started to mentor primarily African-American males, but we were open to anyone. So we did have some other ethnicities come and join our group. Okay. But that is kind of what, got me started with some of the writing I started to do when I saw there's some voids, for young Black leaders and young Black men specifically. Mm-hmm. So I started to do some writing. I will say that while the title of my books both end with While Black, a lot of the lessons and strategies in those books apply to anyone. Mm-hmm. And of course, I took quite a gamble putting While Black on there because it's but I don't write books for money. So I write books because I'm passionate about something. So that's why I felt like those titles would reach out and speak to a specific niche. But I live here in North Carolina. I still do speaking engagements and consulting and writing. I write a little bit for Newsweek. I've written for the Huffington Post. I've written for the BBC as well as the LA Times. So I've been published quite a bit, both in op-eds and articles, as well as my books. So that's a little bit about me. That about sums it up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had thought about, even the titling aspect, and that was a question that I was going to ask you too, kind of off the record. But, since you brought it up, do you receive much resistance, resistance just from the titling? You know what I mean? Just in your general, outlets and whatnot.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So I've done a couple of campaigns where I did some ads on Facebook, and you may have seen them, as a matter of fact, I know you did because that's how you reached out to me.
Yeah,
I get a lot of comments, and the thing is interesting about it. I get some of the comments I get. The book is about helping African American leaders succeed. Mm-hmm. There's nothing about race relations in there. It's specific race relations. Yeah. It just talks about my experiences as a Black leader and some of the pitfalls that I came across. Yeah. And then my whole intent is to try to help younger people and other leaders avoid some of those mistakes.
Sure.
But I get comments from people that I know have not read the book. Yeah. And they're saying I'm racist. They're saying I'm promoting racist theories. But that's expected. And one of the things I will say, if you're going to put a title like that on a book, then you better have some thick skin, because people are going to come at you, and you can't be thin-skinned about it. You can't be sensitive about it. You have to understand that sometimes people don't understand. The other thing I'll say too, and this is not all coming from white people either. Matter of fact, I've gotten more resistance from the Black community about the title and what they think the book is about than I have from the white community, which is very interesting to me. However, again, that's fine. People are entitled to opinions. And, if you're going to be an author, if you're going to be anybody that's going to be out in the public eye and voice your opinions, then you're going to have to be able to deal with that stuff.
That's a fact. And in all honesty, Matt, that's something that I'm still learning, even today. Like I said, just as far as my day job is concerned, just within the political, kind of realm of things, just having having a voice, right, in the community and whatnot. I see you definitely need that thick skin, and I'll be the first to admit, I didn't have it, initially. Yep. I like to say, let me take that back. I had thick skin, but I didn't expect for a lot of the, negative to come from, like you said, from our own people at times, you know what I mean? And more often than not here as of late, they sometimes we lead the way in tearing each other down, you know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, as you said, though, you had a mission, you had a purpose and a reason for writing the book and being exactly who you are, in professionals' lives. So,
yeah, one thing I'll say too about that, Deshaun. So one of the things we have to understand too. So a friend of mine shared something with me a few years ago. He said, hey, any opportunity to engage is an opportunity to educate.
Yeah, that's good.
And so a lot of times, so we can't. So when we get this pushback on what we're trying to do, especially if we know what we're trying to do is coming from a good place.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is kind of talk to those people who are pushing back and kind of explain what you're doing. I had a young man, I think the post is still out there. He said, hey man, who do you think you are that you can give people advice on what to do, and speak for and as a matter of fact, he was specific. He said, who are you to speak for Black people? You can't speak for all Black people. And I just came back and say, listen, here's my background, here's what I've done in my life, leadership wise.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of the book is to not speak for all Black people, but to share some of the lessons and strategies that help me be successful. Yeah. And hopefully those will help someone else be successful and also help someone else not make the same mistakes I made growing up through my ranks in the military and as a DoD civilian, and also and one thing I left out, I was the executive director of a nonprofit for a couple of years as well, and that was another challenging job because when you're a nonprofit, everything you're doing, you're trying to get money from people in your community, so you have to be everything has to be real tight. So the reason I said that, Deshaun, because I could, for you, in your travels while you're out here talking to people, just try to educate as many people as you can. Let them know where you're coming from. Sometimes if you can just talk to people, then they can understand where you're coming from. Because a lot of times people make assumptions about things.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And I appreciate that because it's true, and it's something, it actually, one of the questions that I was going to ask too, you kind of, made a nice little segue into that, was do you feel, as though like young minority men and women have a tougher time being or becoming, successful, within the leadership, arena?
Yeah. So one of the things I think so, yes. And there's several reasons for that, right? The first is opportunities. All right. Sure. So listen, I mean, people are more, and I say people, I'm talking as a species, white or Black. We are more comfortable with who we are comfortable with. So we're more comfortable with people who have our values, our hobbies, who look like us, so a lot of times, especially when you start getting up into the C-suite where all the executives are, you're not going to find many Black people in these places. I think right now, maybe out of the Fortune 500 companies, there may be 4 or 5 CEOs out of 500 companies in the Fortune 500. So that kind of gives you an idea of, so if you don't get the opportunities, then clearly you're not going to be able to lead, So that's the first one, there's just a lack of opportunities. The second one is just having access to a leadership environment, and what I mean by that. So like a gentleman like yourself. So if a younger person comes into your office, it starts as an intern or something, you have almost an obligation to, a younger African-American I'm talking about, you almost have an obligation to reach out to them and start trying to mentor them.
Sure thing.
Because that's one of the things that is kind of lacking, sometimes, unfortunately, and I wrote about this in my book, we see each other as a threat for whatever reason. I mean, I have had this happen multiple times during my career where I showed up somewhere and, I was somewhat shunned by, the African-Americans and the Blacks that were already in the office working there. Right. Now, this didn't happen every occasion, but it happened some. Yeah. So that's the other one, is just being in a leadership environment, having the mentors, being able to see a professional business Black man work and do business, and having access to that man, having access to that woman who is doing well in business, and just being able to watch how they operate and learn from them. And then you take what you can use from them and be successful yourself. But a lot of times we don't get that opportunity. There was I remember there was a Black general in the U.S. Army many years ago. He did not have one young Black staff officer on his staff. And then for your listeners, a general officer has a large staff that he travels with, especially a 4-star. He has a entourage of people that are around him that do things for him. Sure. And he gets to pick those people. So for a Black general to not have one Black young junior officer on his staff, to me, is a travesty.
Yeah, and as you said, they're handpicking these people too, right?
They're handpicking them. So because what that does, so there's a couple of things. That young Black officer, one, he's exposed to leadership. He gets to travel. He's mentored, and he learns. But if you're not there, you can't learn. So that's the other one. And then the last one is just a lack of mentoring in general. And sometimes that's on us because, if I'm an intern and I come work in your office, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to you. Hey, Mr. Deshaun, hey, do you mind if I just pick your brain about a few things? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with doing that. No, absolutely. But a lot of times, especially us as Black men, we are very prideful. Yeah. And we are very extremely reluctant sometimes to ask for help. And that just doesn't mean in business. That means like from the doctor or whatever it is. But we were always taught, we were brought up to just tough it out. Yeah. Get it done on your own. That is a mentality. That is nothing wrong with that mentality. However, we just have to understand that there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help.
Absolutely. I got a question to kind of piggyback off of that, right? Yeah. It makes sense, coming from an individual who's needing help and wanting to, to reach out to, that mentor in a sense, right? But, coming from your position, right? How do you reach back to the individual who you see may need help, but are being prideful and not wanting to reach out to you? How do you initiate that? Or how can we as leaders, initiate those conversations?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'm glad you brought it up because I've had to do this several times throughout my career. And I will tell you, it didn't always go well. Sometimes if you see a young person or somebody that is coming through from where you've been, you have to talk to them. And sometimes you have to give them some honest feedback. Yeah. And sometimes people aren't receptive to honest feedback. I had a young lady that she didn't work directly for me, but she was in the same office I was in when I was right before I retired from the military. And I was pretty senior at that time. And I said, man, this young lady, she's making some mistakes. And a lot of it was just talk. And so I pulled her in the office and I told her, I said, hey, listen, you are really making some calculated mistakes. I don't think you understand the environment you're in. And a lot of the things you're doing are not going over well, but nobody's telling you that they're not. I hear it. So I'm doing something. She got up and stormed out of my office. That's how mad she was with me. And, but I felt good because, see, that's all you can do though.
Yep. Just tell them the truth.
Well, about 4 o'clock that afternoon, she called me. She said, you know what? I want to thank you. She said, nobody told me any of the things you told me. Wow. She said, not one person pulled me aside, and I pulled her aside. But that is the most important thing, Deshaun, is it has to be a one-on-one private conversation. Yeah. And you just tell them, hey, listen, here's something you might want to look at. Here's something you may want to try, because I see some things that you're probably leading you down a path that's going to cause you some problems here in the workplace. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I've done that multiple times. One of the things I'm not shy about is giving out unsolicited advice, man. And I laugh about it because, well, one, that's what military people do. I mean, we just walk around telling everybody what to do, which is a fact. Which is a little bit crazy sometimes, but and I have harnessed that a lot since I got out of the military. Because listen, man, I'm an older man now. Nobody's trying to listen. So now I kind of more wait until somebody comes to me, unless I see a problem that can be devastating for someone. Then I talk to them. I mean, because, and then it's off my conscience. So if you've been told, and my experience has been, though, Deshaun, that if you do this to somebody in private and they can see you coming from a good place, they will be more receptive to it. I think with the young lady I was talking about, and I see her occasionally now. I'll run into her at a store or something. She, hey, how you doing? But we're friends. We became friends for life. But initially she ran out of my office. But again, I had to tell her what all these people were saying behind her back. And she was a young black woman, man. And she was very smart, very capable, but she was rough around the edges a little bit. And she thought people was enjoying some of the stuff that she was doing. And they were kind of behind her back making some comments. And I heard those comments and I felt like, I had to tell her about it. Yeah. So definitely, I would say a couple of things with your question. To answer your question, that was a long way of answering it, but
it was good. That was perfect.
Talk to them, pull them off to the side, and address the issue with them. And I guarantee you, most people appreciate that more than because a lot of times people don't tell them. People don't tell them what's going on, and sometimes feedback is good. All feedback is good. Even negative things about ourselves is good.
Absolutely, and it makes sense to hear you answer in the way you did, because you speak often about just leading with compassion, or just being or compassionate leadership, right? Yeah. Can you unpack what you are meaning when you mention compassionate leadership? I know a lot of what you just said, pulling them to the side and understanding that they may not understand how they are coming off, right?
Yep. So compassionate leadership is pretty simple, and I will tell you that was something that I learned, honestly, almost after I was out of the military, because I'm going to tell you right now, in the military, compassion is not a thing. That's a big thing there. I mean, people yell at you. You got to do what you're told. So people are less compassionate. And I'll share a couple of stories with you. So compassion basically is just caring about people. And then if you've got team members that are going through something, be it on the job or in their personal lives, just caring about them and doing what you can and having a desire to see whatever they're going through or whatever they're suffering through end. That's what compassion is in a nutshell. It's caring about the people that work for you and with you, right? So if you do this, what I have experienced is if you've got someone that's struggling, and now to be a compassionate leader, you've got to be very observant as well. Because, for example, if you've got 4 employees and you've got like 2 that are like your top performers, then all of a sudden their performance goes down below the other 2. And I'm saying they're all performing well, but you've got 2 that are just stellar, then there's probably something going on there. Yeah. A lot of times, and I know during my experience in the military and even as a DoD civilian, people don't want to talk about that stuff because it can cost them when it's time for promotions. It can cost them when it's time for awards and bonuses and things of this nature, because it's okay. This man, he's having marital problems or family problems. How can he lead other people if his life's a mess? And that's not necessarily always the case. I mean, things can happen. Listen, my life is not perfect. I mean, I struggled with a lot of things during my career, personal family things. injuries, all kinds of things.
Sure.
And I will not lie to you. I hid a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was not in an environment where I could go to somebody and say, hey, listen, man, I've got some family stuff going on that I need to deal with.
Yep.
So being a compassionate leader is being the type of leader that somebody can come to you with a problem and you can try to help them in that problem, or assist them or get them the right help they need. And what I have found, when you do that, Deshaun, people will run through a wall for you.
Yeah.
I mean, people, you can, one thing about it. So if you're in charge of people, you say you can have 30 people working for you. You know, in the military, we have large groups of people under us.
Mm-hmm. You
can't fool people if you care about them or not. People can tell the first time you talk to them if you're sincere or not. So that has got to be genuine. So if you come off, and it just doesn't work. So, but I have found that I have been able to get top-notch output from members of my team by just showing a little bit of compassion for things they're going through and trying to help them end the things they're going through.
Sure. That's awesome. I say I talk about, just kind of my office, now, prior to, myself and, my boss, coming on board, they struggled, mentally. They were tapped out, and it was just due to, just the lack of, leadership prior to, and just that compassion, piece of it. And it was almost as though, the moment we got in, and really started to treat people like they're people, treat people with some respect, and show genuine concern for their well-being. As you said, they literally, it was like the light switch, flipped for them. And we have, I wouldn't trade these women in for anything in the world, because they're simply amazing. They just needed someone to show them that they cared just as much as they did,
And that's what most people want in the workplace. They just want to be a part of a team and be a part of decision making and feel wanted. That's it.
Absolutely.
And, and one other thing I want to just share, because, and I've seen this play out too many times, I feel it's important for me to bring up. Mm-hmm. So we're not putting leadership positions to haze people, to harass them, to torture them. That's not what leadership is about. You're screwing with somebody's livelihood if you're their boss, and you're screwing with them, and doing little things to just kind of keep them off kilter. That's just not what it's about. If you got a problem with somebody, pull them to the side and say, hey, listen, you're not doing this, but don't ask them to go dig a hole and hide all the shovels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the best analogy I can use right there. And I had bosses like that,
Absolutely. You and me both. We both have. Absolutely.
Okay. So, but I off the top a little bit, but I just.
No, that's perfect, because, a lot of times, just as we're talking about leadership, and we're about to jump into a leadership question, but, individuals, the people often, take for granted, the Most High will keep you from leadership opportunities because of the individuals that you are, right? And we lose sight of, that compassion and things of that nature. When you get a little piece of power, you get a new position, it can go to your head if you're not careful. And then you find yourself, as you said, treating people, ways that you wouldn't dare let somebody treat you, in your upbringing, and you're coming up, within a professional, atmosphere. So no, that's perfect. But with that, right, we're in a time of life where a lot of people are wanting to be, become professionals, become entrepreneurs and things of that nature, right? But with that, we often lack the core disciplines needed within ourselves to see success. So I wanted to ask you, how can we change, that narrative, just from a mental standpoint?
So one of the things, and you're an entrepreneur, so you understand this.
Sure.
But I think it's very important that the people that listen to your podcast understand is entrepreneurship is extremely hard work.
Absolutely.
You put in a lot of time. Everything falls on you, the entrepreneur. You're responsible for everything.
That's a fact.
And a lot of times, getting started out, you don't initially see a profit. I know when I started my speaking business many years ago, I had to buy equipment. I had to buy, memberships to websites that book speakers, things of this nature. And that is another thing you have to understand as an entrepreneur is just how, what cost comes, what comes into the cost.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't understand that you spend more money initially until you start getting set up.
That's a fact.
The other thing too is, I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts after you reached out to me, and you were talking about a gentleman that helped you, that shortened your learning curve by sharing his knowledge with you.
Yeah.
That is the other thing that is vital. Now,
absolutely.
Now, I'm sure you went and reached out to that gentleman for help.
Absolutely.
Well, so back to what I talked about, right? So, I mean, if you sat in your living room, hey man, success ain't coming to your house. It's just not coming and knocking on the door and saying, hey, I'm coming in, So you have to reach out to people. So the first thing I would tell people, young entrepreneur wannabes or young leaders, is to reach out to anybody. If you see somebody that is where you want to be and you have access to them, reach out to them. Rarely will somebody tell you, nope, I don't want nothing to do with you, young person. I don't want anything to do with you. Don't come asking me for help. That almost never happens. Yep. Anyone who is in a position of leadership or who are a successful entrepreneur or a successful business person, they are more than willing to share and help you because you've taken that initiative to reach out to them. That's not easy to do for somebody to just walk up to a stranger and say, hey man, I need help. So that's a big one there. And I go back to that. That's one of the things I tap on regularly is I posted something on LinkedIn the other day about that. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say I need help.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay to say, can you help me?
Absolutely.
I mean, nobody will kill you for saying those words, man.
And
more than likely,
you'll
get more respect, and you'll probably be more successful if you did that. But we're just not wired that way. We're from our history in America, we're suspicious people in general about everybody, and that's how we were. That's culturally part of our DNA, just being suspicious and being kind of standoffish. So, just loosen up, be a little more outgoing, and reach out to people, engage people. One of the other things too, and while we're on this, because I remember years ago, I had a young officer lived across the street from me, not here, but in another place. And he was a company commander in the 82nd Airborne Division, young black guy, and his wife, and his wife would come over and talk to my wife all the time. And by this time I was close to retirement from the military, but she would say how she was not going to any of the events, that the officers' wives have. Now, I'll tell you something about the military. So officers' wives, that can make or break an officer's career if based on functions and things of that nature and how they host people and things of this nature. It's a lot of that in play, not so much for non-commissioned officers, but I saw several commissioned officers have issues because of personal relationships between the wives and some of the senior officers' wives, things of that nature. I mean, sometimes that stuff happens. But I explained to her that, hey, you guys, when an office, a business office or a company, when they throw an event, you need to be at that event. More stuff sometimes gets done at those events than it does in the office in 40 hours. You'll hear more loose talk. You'll pick up on more things at those events. That's an opportunity to really get some good intel. Yeah. That's an opportunity to let people see you outside that office environment, and you conduct yourself well. And that's an opportunity for you to advance because if a company throws an event, they're not throwing that event just to throw an event. They're throwing it to get everybody together and do something for you outside the office. And I know sometimes, because I've heard it, I've had a lot of my friends and a lot of my young, my fellow black officers, non-commissioned officers, they say, hey, I'm not going to these events because, I'm not a kiss butt or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I use butt, but you know what So that kind of thing. And see, that's the kind of thinking that we just gotta, you gotta get away from. You gotta think more about your end game and what you want to achieve. And sometimes that means you got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to do some things you haven't normally done. But those are a few things, I think. But the mentorship is really important. Because a lot of things, there's a stigma out there about us in general.
Yeah.
So every opportunity you get to disprove that, you should take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And along with that comes being prepared and doing a lot of research. I did a talk to a group the other day, and I told them, I'll do a 20-minute speech, and sometimes I've spent as many as 80 hours on a 20-minute speech, on a keynote speech. 20-minute speech, but I spent 80 hours. But I've got to hit everything. If an event planner sends me a sheet telling me this is the things I want addressed, I want to make sure I address them, and not only address them, but address them to the point where everybody in that audience head is going up and down.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need the payoffs from those people. But that's what it takes. I mean, so 80 hours for a 20-minute speech, but that's the kind of work ethic and the kind of dedication you have to put into everything if you want to be successful. That's
a fact. I love that quote. I see it often, now especially, but it says the overnight success, took, 6-7 years before that even took place, and it's the truth, because I say, even just building the company that we have, today, we are leaps and bounds away from where we want to be, but full transparency, we are leaps and bounds from where we were when we started, and that's the thing for us. It's been consistency, the moment we shifted our mindset, and really just started to focus and just ensuring that we were consistent. The work that we were doing, it was good work. It's good work. We're trying to help provide financial literacy, provide self-help and development and things of that nature for people. As far as the real estate portion of things, we have the properties, and the work aspect of it is there. It's good. We needed to focus in on our consistency, right? And the moment our mindset shifted in that, we're seeing things just unfold, and just continue to be genuine, in our approach. You mentioned my mentor, that helped kind of bring me in, right? His thing for me, he said, the way you can repay me is by simply sharing the information that I've given you.
Yep.
It was simple, he's definitely not, he absolutely could have kept a lot of that, the key jewels to himself and the whole crab in the barrel kind of mindset.
Yep.
He's like, I can't take it with me. I can only do so much while I'm here. So while I'm here, let me bring somebody else with me, right? Yep. So and that's amazing. That's awesome.
I feel
pretty wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I give away more information. I mean, I had somebody come and tell me, they said, hey, you could package this and sell it. I just look, man, at some point, you'll have enough money, you'll live comfortable enough.
Yeah.
But anytime money is the only objective when you're doing something, then you're probably not going to be as good at it.
That's a fact.
You would be if you were passionate about it.
That's a fact.
And I believe that. I have an analogy that I always break down for the young kids, because when you talked about the success, how people don't see the hard work. You know what I tell them? I say, hey, where do you think Steph Curry is right now? And they just look at me. What do you mean? I said, I can tell you where he is. He's shooting jumpers.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's how he left Davidson University. You could drive right up the street here in Charlotte. I've driven by Davidson. It takes 2 minutes to drive by that school. It's small.
Yeah.
But that's how he becomes number 7 overall.
Yeah.
And that's how he's got all them championships and MVPs.
That's a fact.
Because this guy is working. We don't see him practice, but when he shows up for the game, that he done took 3,000 jumpers that day, man, or 1,000 or whatever the number. But you get what I'm saying. So there's always work behind the scenes, and if people see you, wearing with a nice job and wearing a suit and tie, They don't understand probably what it took for you to get there. And that's what everyone needs to understand is nobody, I mean, I'm a poor boy from Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, when you talk about deck stacked against, I mean, I ain't supposed to be sitting where I'm at. But I had a lot of people help me to get here, man. And that's why I feel like it's very important for me to help people try to get there as well. And that's why I share, my lessons and strategies and things of that nature with regards to leadership and just living life.
I love it. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Said had it been up to, a couple of my teachers early on, they would have told you very clear.
Yep.
He ain't gonna make it. He won't be around too long.
Right.
However he's gonna go out, he won't be around too long. But hey, here we are. So it is. It's just the thing to keep going, consistency, right?
Yeah.
So listen, I'll close out, with this. Again, I really, really genuinely appreciate you reaching out, or me reaching out and you accepting. Let me say that. It's an honor. It's been an honor we've had a couple conversations up to this point, and, definitely respect what you're doing, love what you're doing. And, I'm going to take it upon myself to, ensure that, your book, your message and everything gets out even more, than as far as, my end is concerned, so I appreciate you as well. I want to end with this final question. Black Vest Money, at its core, it's a financial literacy company. How important is financial literacy in your business life when striving to become and continue to be a successful leader?
So, that's about the perfect question to end on, financial literacy, because I will tell you something. Financial literacy and financial independence is a struggle for so many Americans, Black or white. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's, a lot of us, I think more of us are born into poverty and lower class than rich. I mean, that's just a fact, that there's a percentage of wealthy people and a percentage of middle class and then a percentage of lower class, what we call poor people, but that's a big number.
Yeah. And
listen, I grew up dirt poor. I can tell you, man, bologna sandwiches, whatever, So I understand, that. But let me just say this. So I think it's almost impossible to be a leader if you have financial problems. Yeah. Because anyone who's had financial problems, I raise my hand. It is all consuming. It is all consuming. That is all you think about.
That's
because you can't. How can you lead other people? How can you tell? Because your whole focus is surviving and how you're going to pay your rent and how you're going to pay your car payment and feed yourself and feed your family. So I have a very simple, and somebody told me this and I knew this, but sometimes you just have to hear it. So I repeat it as often as I can. Don't spend more money than you make. Now, that sounds very simple. However, listen, man, I had, you know what Montgomery Ward is?
Absolutely.
So Montgomery Ward, I think Sears bought them out, but that was a company. I got my first credit card with Montgomery Ward. Mm-hmm. And me and my wife, I think we went down there and bought everything, and we maxed that thing out in a week, man. Yeah. And then I'm looking at it, and then I think the interest rate was 26% on that.
Yeah.
So, and we were getting stuff we didn't even need.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So, and I heard you talk about that on one of your other podcasts. Sometimes so we live in a time now where being flashy, and being just showing a lot of high end items is very, very popular. I mean, you've got Instagram, you've got all these other social sites. So people, that's kind of the realm we're in right now. And if you just don't spend more than you make, you'll start to see some advances. The other thing I tell people, if at all possible, even if it's $5, put something away every pay period.
Yes. Come on.
Put some money away. Squirrel money away, man, even if it's a little amount. My oldest daughter, I saw her doing this. man, she had her first job. She was still in high school, and we had one computer in the house. This is Windows 95. And
Yeah.
and I went and pulled the screen up, and she had a pie chart where she was putting a percentage of her money in the bank, a percentage for spend. And this girl, I never taught her that.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, man, if I had known, now this girl's doing this on her own at a young age.
Yeah.
And she probably got it from her mom. She sure didn't get it from me, man. Because because I would run through every penny I got, I spent it,
Absolutely.
And so that's the thing right there. So number one there is just kind of, if you can spend less, watch your spending, watch the credit cards, watch your interest rates.
Yeah.
Because there are predators out there. I mean, they'll, all these ads, all these ads, man, hey, you can get this free and you can get that, no money down and all this stuff. There's nothing free in this world.
Absolutely.
You're going to pay dearly if you go out and take on certain financial risk.
Absolutely.
And so that's one. And the financial stuff causes so much stress. It just really makes being a leader hard. I've seen guys that I worked with get denied opportunities because of their finances. See, I worked in special operations. They did background checks. They checked your finances. I mean, they checked it, man. You see how much, what your debt to income ratio was and all this stuff. And I want a good friend of mine, God rest his soul. He had filed bankruptcy and didn't tell anybody. And he went before a board, a hiring board, and they were like, hey, how's your finances? And they're good to go. He said, no, well, why is there bankruptcy on your report? Yeah. Boom, he was done.
Yeah.
And so just, when you're young, you can make some of those financial mistakes, but the older you get, you start running out of time to correct.
Makes it really hard to clean up.
So and the last thing I'll touch on it. So goes back to mentoring. So I've got a young nephew, before he went in the Army, we went and got some wings, and I have a talk with him, and I sat down and basically took him to the website and showed him how to use thrifty savings and how they match, and I told him, I said, man, at your age right now, you start putting away $150 a month and just forget about it.
Yeah. And
if you stay 20 years, you'll probably be a millionaire.
That's a fact.
But nobody sat down and talked to me about that stuff, man. So when I went in the military, man, I was out there spending, having a good old time. Now I had fun. So I'm not, I would be much further along financially than I am now.
Absolutely.
But my father always said you can't miss something you never had. But
fact.
At the same time, we learn from these mistakes.
Yeah.
That's why, what you're doing, especially what you're doing, just the money angle, that's what kind of attracted me to the podcast and the message you're putting out, because any kind of financial literacy training and podcasts and initiatives for our community, I think is just great, so
I appreciate that. I really do.
And I mean that, And the other thing, last thing I'll talk about on the finances too, and listen, so my father was not a very educated man. He was a hardworking man, grew up, in the 40s, 50s, back in the day. But one of the things he always did, man, he made sure that that he was not able to teach me the finances the way he should, but he took me to the bank. I mean, so we're going back to having a passbook where you write your stuff in there.
Yeah.
This back in the day, CNS Bank down there in Georgia, man. So, but my pops would take me to the bank. Got to a point where I got on his nerves so bad, because then every time I got like a nickel or something, I wanted him to take me to the bank. And he was like, look, man, you're going to have to save some money up. We're not going to be running to the bank.
Let it build up a little bit.
Exactly. Right. But but now, even without my with his lack of education, he had enough sense to teach me how to save some money.
Yeah.
And it was empowering to me as a kid to have that little bank book. Yeah. And I just go look in it, and then it was my money, and it was in a bank, and I was like not 10, 11 years old, selling bottles, raking yards, whatever. But my point on that is, teach your children, start teaching them now. And it doesn't matter what your education level is or how much money you got. It's about teaching your kids not to make the mistakes you make.
Absolutely.
And if we could do that every generation, man, down the road, we'll be as a people, we'll be in a much better place.
I agree. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Mr. Matt Drayton, listen, again, I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with, with myself and just for our audience, man. It's extremely important. I encourage everyone to if you don't mind, if you can share your website really quick for me.
Yeah, so my website is mattdrayton.com. You can see some of the things I've written there. You can see some of my demos. Also, both my books can be purchased on the site, Leading While Black and Succeeding While Black. Leading While Black being my latest book, published in May of last year. But yeah, that's it. MattDrayton.com. You can go there. You can follow me on social media. All my social media sites are on that website as well. And what I try to do on my social media, I try to on the Matt Drayton Drayton Communications LLC pages, I try to post like positive thoughts, positive quotes, stories, things that will stimulate young leaders to try to be successful. And as well as you can reach out to me on those sites as well. I respond to everybody, even sometimes the folks who try to, who come at me.
Yeah.
Well, but because the thing is, listen, that's I don't think all of that is coming from a malicious place all the time. It's coming from a lack of understanding me and who I am. I've one thing about it, and I thrive on. I try to give more than I take.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if the world did that, if everybody in the world did that, this would be a much better place. But I make a concerted effort to give more than I take. So, but that's it, man. That's my that's how you can get a hold of me and reach out to me. And thank you for having me, man. I think you're doing great work. When you reached out, I went and looked at some of the stuff you had done and some of your podcasts, and I said, man, this is really a good message, and this is the kind of thing we need in our community. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners today.
Thank you again. And like I said, this won't be the last. I'll be reaching out again, and we can do a follow up, and just continue to
go. I am well read, so I'm I cover a lot of topics, man. I've
awesome.
The longer you be here, the longer more stuff you learn. But I've got an extensive background in a lot of different areas, awesome. And I try to share all of that stuff with people.
Let's do it. There you have it, guys. Matt Drayton. I appreciate you again. It's your man, Deshaun Wolf Williams, Black Vest. Thank you.
Thank you.